Welcome to World True Crime, where we uncover the most shocking and gripping stories from around the globe. In today's episode, we're diving into a case that captured the attention of an entire nation. Tragic and mysterious disappearance of Allison Baden-Clay. In April 2012, this devoted mother of three vanished from her Brisbane home, sparking a massive search effort and media frenzy. As the investigation unfolded, dark secrets about her seemingly perfect life began to emerge, leading to one of the most high-profile murder trials in Australian history. Join us as we unravel the web of lies, deceit, and betrayal that ultimately led to Allison's tragic fate. In the early hours of Friday the 20th of April 2012, Jared Baden-Clay, a local real estate agent from Brisbane, reported his wife Allison missing. Police were quick to respond, and word began to spread about the disappearance. A friend from Brisbane phoned up and knew the real estate connection and said, Allison B. Clay's gone missing. And I was just in shock. Here was this beautiful Allison B. Clay. She is mom with three beautiful young girls. And they were a well-known family in the community. People don't generally go missing in Brisbane. So it was a surprise that was treated like just any other missing person. Perhaps, a mom who'd gone off for a walk. I don't want to be alarmist. I tried the 131 number, but just went on forever. Why? All right, Jared, I'll get police to come and see you. Okay, all right. Thanks, Jared. Bye-bye. 45-year-old Jared Baden-Clay married Allison in 1997. The couple traveled the world before settling in Brisbane, Australia, into 2000, where they had three daughters. The family was well known and loved, and when Allison disappeared, police immediately established a task force and rallied the community into action. Obviously, there was deep concern, and at that stage, no one knew what had happened. Nobody in the general community, that is. I got a call from the police asking to use our clubhouse as a command post. The search was structured from Brisbane Oval, and I remember the emergency services out, trolling creeks, trolling parks, trolling the neighborhoods, searching for any sign of her. Her search parties started forming. SCS workers were looking in all areas, and volunteers were turning out. Families in the area. Neighbors, you could tell that it was a close-knit community who really cared for this woman. I went down there to see the police, and that's when I met Allison's parents, an extended family. Brisbane Oval in the center of town acted as a focal point for the police investigation and was located just 200 meters from the Baden-Clay home. As the search progressed, with local residents and volunteers involved, police held an appeal for information. It fell to Allison's parents, Jeff and Priscilla Dickey, determined to do whatever it took to find their daughter. Face the daunting task of speaking to the media. Please help us to find our dear Allison. Our lives will never be the same. We must find it. When Allison's parents did make the public appeal, was incredibly emotional and upsetting. You could tell that they were so worried, they were so concerned about Allison's disappearance. Now concerned for her well-being, very concerned, and she's a much-loved person. I think really it became one of the most covered crime cases in Australia in about a decade. There was huge interest. It became not just a state story of relevance in Brisbane. Sydney was interested. For Sydney to be interested, that's big. Though the network, it became a network story. And from there, we really had to be mindful of that and not missing anything, any detail, not missing any scandal, not missing any reaction outside of the house, not missing a shot. We had to be really, really mindful. And that's when it became so life-consuming as well. Whilst Allison's devoted parents worked with the media and the police, desperate for any clues that may help find their beloved daughter, the actions of Baden-Clay himself started to raise questions. Normally, someone's partner goes missing, they're distraught, they're upset, they can't sleep, they're just frantic. Very strange, very strange. I thought he would have been down there from dawn to dusk like Jeff and Pizzle. Where the hell was he? Why wasn't he out in these search parties? As Jared Baden-Clay retreated further from public scrutiny, the media became more insistent on finding him, and within days were tracking his every move. It was 4 days after Allison went missing. We knew at that time. It was very strange that Jared hadn't been out actively looking for his wife and had moved in with his parents. Crime reporter narrative. I went straight to his parents' home and saw the door open. So we ran over to the driveway, and Jared did walk straight to us, and I thought, wow, we're very lucky he's going to say something here. I'm trying to look after my children at the moment. They've got 3 young girls, and we really trust that the police are doing everything they can find my wife. And it was strange that he wasn't just standing there and saying, please, I beg you give me some information about my missing wife. It was very unusual. I thought his eye contact was very strange. He didn't look at me. He kept kind of looking back and forth, looking to the ground. And his voice was quite high. It was quite strained. We just hope that she'll come home soon. And I need to go now to an appointment. From his sister's body language, she looks so nervous. There'll be people who'll be able to read your body language and read the intonation in your voice. Being a crime reporter is very difficult. You've got to try and not become emotionally involved in a case. But that's very difficult. You're hearing a lot of horrific detail, a lot of detail that the public is really never going to hear. But I knew after doing that interview with Allison Baden-Clay on the driveway that day, I thought that this was a different case in 12 years. I have probably covered around 30 murders, been exposed to a lot of terrible detail, had to talk to many victims of crime, and always trying to do that with respect. And in some ways, you can become desensitized to a lot of information you were hearing. But I would really say this story became a career-defining moment for me, because never had there been such public interest in a case. We watched that tape over and over, and everyone commented on his eye contact or lack of. My cameraman said something's not right with this guy. He was not genuine. It was not a concerned husband. It was not a desperate husband looking to find his wife. I felt he was covering something up. I did speak to one of my police contacts, and his first question when he heard that I had interviewed him was, "Did you see any scratches on his face?" On the right-hand side of Jared's face were a number of distinct and possibly incriminating deep scratch marks. At that point in time, I didn't know there were scratches. I wasn't looking for them. I went straight back to the tape. I had a look at it, and Jared had been shielding that side of his face. When police did arrive at the house, he was very cool, he was quite calm, but they immediately noticed the scratches. I cut myself shaving this morning, and everybody has said that looks suspicious, and that's part of the reason. Your hair doesn't look like a shaving cut. Jared was very well known in the community. He was apparently high-profile real estate agent. He was president of the Chamber of Commerce at some point. He made himself known wherever he went. Probably the first I became aware of the family was the Clay team. Was this trio, Allison Baden-Clay's father, his mother, and Gerard himself, are all wearing the gold jack, the franchise they belong to. I must admit, right from the start, I thought that was a little bit on the back foot for an agent wanting to promote himself to have his mom and dad there. I couldn't take them seriously. He was just trying to be too. Police begin their investigation. A lot of people knew Jared. He was a bit of a man about town, I guess. And this is what really attracted the community. Allison Baden-Clay's reputation as a respectable professional and husband continued to come under scrutiny when details surfaced that would fuel further speculation and doubt. We'd found out that Jared had been involved in a car crash just after 3:00 p.m. on Sunday, the 22nd of April. Jared was involved in a minor car accident. Police revealed that Jared had undergone medical tests for visible injuries on his body. The day Allison went missing and was being recalled for further examinations when the crash occurred. He was actually on his way to undergo more DNA testing. Have more photographs of injury sustained, the scratches on his face, the markings on his chest. Jared had told police that he suffered a reaction to a caterpillar bite, which left red abrasion on his chest. And neck tests would later prove that no species of caterpillar that could cause such reaction. No caterpillars present in the area where the Baden-Clays lived. Perhaps the car CR that he was involved in, he was trying to disguise the injuries already there with fresh ones from the car crash. I just thought this more of this meets the eye. We understood why the whole thing was looking incredibly suspicious. As the search for Allison continued, rumors began to circulate around the town, and the Baden-Clay family appeared to close ranks. Generally speaking, the media was treading with caution and concern, and I feel respect for Allison's family. It was a very different front in regard to the Baden-Clays. They were always trying to hide from us, even escaping through neighbors' yards, jumping into different cars, borrowing friends' cars. It was just always quite strange that they weren't more cooperative with the media in the search for Allison. I found it quite distasteful, the way his parents were reacting to it, and that they didn't appear to have any real concern. There was a Team A in the community, and there's a larger team supporting the Dickey, as Allison's family maintained a vigil at Task Force Base. Police asked Brisbane residents to search their properties while over 400 emergency service volunteers on foot and horseback continued the search for Allison. 10 days after she went missing. The area was also quite residential. There were some big properties as well. It was a very wealthy area. So, police had encouraged landowners to search whenever they could as well, to see if there was any trace of Allison, any clothing or anything which might help them with the investigation. So, the community really became involved, and part of this search as well, that I guess really showed the concern for her. And also, what I guess we could say was I think most people involved were expecting that a body would be found. You know, a mother of 3 beautiful young girls does not just walk out on kids. The Brisbane River is a good place for walking, and it's really nice to go walking early in the morning. Probably most people don't even know it exists. Very quiet in that part of the river. Daryl Joyce, a professor of horticulture and resident of Brisbane's western suburbs, was enjoying the first morning of his holidays. First time I knew that lady got missing was on the news, kept going on for days and days. I became most aware when they sort of set up a mannequin of the missing lady, dressed her up in the way that she was when she'd gone missing, and because it was local, and naturally we were all wanted to know what was happening, took a special interest in it. Colo Creek is 14 kilometers from Brisbane. It's a small side creek that flows into the Brisbane River, famed for its nature reserves and rich vegetation. The river and side creeks are often inaccessible on foot. Colo Creek itself, when you come off the Brisbane River, it's got a wide opening. I paddled upstream because that's the best way to go with the tides that day. And as I got closer to the bridge, I saw a body lying on the creek bank immediately underneath. And then as I got closer, there was a sort of smell. I still kept going past, just to try and understand what was going on. And then I recognized the clothes because that mannequin that they had in the park or somewhere in Brisbane was dressed in the sort of 3/4 length pants. I think it was. I figured out what it was. And I didn't stay around. There's no way you can get out of it and do anything there. Anyway, you just end up falling in the water. So I just shot home and rang the police. The woman's body, found yesterday on a creek bed, yet to be formally identified. We are treating it very seriously, that it may be hurt. The grim discovery marked the tragic end of the 10-day search. The body was confirmed to be that of Allison Baden-Clay. Questions were now asked as to how had this much-loved mother of 3 ended up on the edge of a creek bed, 14 kilometers from her family home. Police are appealing to anyone that may have seen anything suspicious on the night when Miss Allison went missing. Particular, they're asking for people that may have seen one of the 2 family cars, any evidence that there may have been some suspicious activity in this area. Allison's body had been found, and a sinister side had been put to the whole investigation. This officially became a murder investigation. It was so sad for her family, incredibly sad. They were 3 little girls without a mother. I felt it deeply because of my happy memories there with my family. And this is a horrible act when we did hear the news. It was incredibly sad, and I know all of the police involved were very moved, saddened, and upset for these 3 little girls who were now without a mother. Upset for Allison's parents, her siblings, community at large, her friends, because they'd all gathered around to try and find this woman who was, kind, loving, beautiful, professional, and incredibly intelligent. As Allison's family and friends came to terms with their tragic loss, police intensified their investigation and further information surfaced that would cast a shadow on what had appeared to be a flawless family. After Allison's body was found, this idea of a perfect family in Brisbane was really shattered. Information started to come out, or was revealed to us, that Jared had been having an affair. We found out who the woman was that he was having an affair with. Tony Machu. He said to me, "I need you to know that I love you, and that I am going to be leaving my wife." Tony Machu began working for Jared in 2008. Their affair began in August of that year, when Allison discovered her husband's infidelity in September 2011 and demanded the couple counseling. Jared ended the affair briefly until the lovers rekindled their romance just 3 months later. I remember the day when she was driven into Inley CIB, into the police station and wearing glasses, and she was obviously not wanting any media exposure. She was the unknown woman, the mistress, and pretty much straight away the feeling within the community as well was very negative towards her. Obviously very negative towards Jared. His philandering, if you like, wasn't a total secret through the community and through the real estate industry. Jared Baden-Clay had made promises to Tony Machu regarding leaving his wife the night before Allison went missing. She learned that both women would also be attending an industry conference. The next day, Machu was leaving at the possibility of a confrontation with Allison, and in a heated phone call with Jared, she demanded he tell his wife about the affair. This was a very juicy story. Every little bit of detail about Jared, his lies start to unravel. Baden-Clay was just being lapped up out in the public. Everyone wanted to hear about the scandal. Everyone wanted to hear about what he'd done, what was the latest. If you sat down and tried to get a well-off area, happy family, and then create this dark sort of background mystery, you couldn't have written a better story. As police dug deeper, private life of Jared Baden-Clay began to untangle. Spectacularly in public view, as more startling revelations came to light, we also began to find out that Jared was in a lot of financial difficulty. He'd also bumped up Allison's life insurance policy. Jared Baden-Clay immediately lodged a claim on his wife's life insurance the day her body was found. Supreme arrogance and feeling that he could just pull the wool over everybody's eyes and they'd buy it. Just all of these factors were really pointing towards something incredibly suspicious about this case. It was not a golden, perfect family. There were a lot of cracks in this marriage affairs, financial difficulties, life insurance policies, and a major task force investigating his wife's murder. The deck was being stacked against Jared Baden-Clay, and every detail of his personal life was played out in public view. All eyes were on Jared Baden-Clay, so that ramped up our coverage to a whole other level. It's pretty much 24/7 coverage of his parents' house. I don't think I've ever known a tragedy of this kind to have so much publicity. Quite often you'll hear about it on the news, and you might hear it in the morning. You'll be lucky if you hear it in the evening, 1 or 2 days, and it's gone. Everyone was talking about this case. It was a massive ratings period for TV news bulletins in Brisbane at that time. With the salacious details of Jared Baden-Clay's life now publicly exposed, police carefully considered every detail of the case, and their investigation intensified to include personal possessions. There continued to be a huge police presence at Jared Baden-Clay's parents' house, with several occasions in the coming days and weeks. Detectives would go to the house. I remember one particular day they left carrying a lot of brown paper bags. So we knew that they were taking evidence to examine back at the police station. The location of Allison's body also helped police with vital clues that would identify her movements before and after death. Dr. Gordon Geimer, a forensic botanist and director of the Queensland Herbarium, was instrumental in assisting police in the murder investigation. I went on the leaf material that was collected from the head and shoulders and hair of Allison Baden-Clay. Then I could identify there was leaves from 6 different species. There's no other material, no other botanical material, which I would have expected. There would have been some grass seeds or some other material, but there wasn't, which I was a bit surprised. So then I rang the police and said that, and now I like to go to Cooloonbung Creek, and then to the house. Forensic experts revealed that Allison's body had lay undisturbed on the bank of Cooloonbung Creek for 10 days. Dr. Geimer had expected more local plant material to be present on her body, and the lack of this seemed unusual. I did a full survey of that Kulunbung Creek area where the body was found, corded all the species got by body out, and scanned up and down the creek, and basically could only see 2 of the 6 species that I found in her hair. These missing species led Dr. Jimer to one inevitable conclusion. The other plant matter must have come from a different location, suggesting her body had been moved to the creek from elsewhere. And then we moved to 593 Brisbane Road to the house, and all the 6 species were present. So then I went back to the detective and I said I can see 6 species. All 6 species are there. Dr. Jim's botanical discoveries were proof that specific leaves from the Brisbane home present in Allison's hair. This then begged the question, how did those leaves get there? The only explanation I'd sort of heard put forward by the husband was that she'd gone for a walk early in the morning, and then, something had gone wrong. I know that it's a long way from where she would have been walking at Brisbane, and impossible that she would have walked that far. I decided that I need to do far more investigation, and more or less walked that 14 km, recorded all the species along that route, and particularly the 6 species that were found in our hair. There was no part of that road which had all 6 species, so therefore it was impossible that the leaves in her hair could have got there by walking the 14 km from her house to Kulunbung Creek. The presence of species in the forensic evidence is critical in looking at crime reconstruction and possible scenarios of where Allison was at certain time. On the botanical evidence alone and a possible stereo, she was likely to be on the back P area. That's consistent with the leaves, age of the leaves, the species that occurred in her hair. Though if the scenario is that she got to the car, she must have been carried to the car from the repow, and then that transported to Kulunbung Creek. There's no about that, because there's no other species that link her to any other site, and the evidence would indicate possibly carried and then dumped into Kulunbung Creek. When I was there, you got lots of seeds and grasses on your clothing would indicate that she must have been carried and put into Quay Creek. More shocking revelations began to surface as police carried out forensic tests on Allison's car. Traces of her blood were discovered in the boot and on the door. I remember a day that detectives arrived at the house that day. In particular, we knew something was going on. We all got particularly anxious. We thought, wow, I wonder if today is going to be the day that they'll arrest him. Everyone assumed that was going to happen. And we were just waiting. We were on 24-hour standby. This whole scenario is like a classic Agatha Christie story. Just 6 weeks after the discovery of Allison's body at Kulunbung Creek, police were focusing their investigations on one suspect. Allison Baden-Clay was taken to the police headquarters and interviewed. Jared had gone into the station with his lawyer. We all sprinted, jumped into the news cars to get over to Indra Ply CIB. Everyone was set up ready to go. And I remember it wasn't a long period of time before Allison Baden-Clay's lawyer did surface and said that his client had been charged, so he'd effectively been charged with the murder of his wife, denying any involvement. Jared was arrested and charged with his wife's murder. The elaborate web of lies and deceit this apparently devoted husband and father had spun began to unravel. Dramatically in public view, it was adrenaline overload. We were expecting it to happen, but I think everyone was almost in shock. I don't feel anyone was surprised, but there was a real relief, and finally this has happened. Finally, this guy is going to have to face court. I'd become so engrossed and involved in this case for 2 months that it really was a bittersweet moment. When he was arrested, when a young mother is killed, is found dead, and she's got 3 young girls, and you see how grief-stricken her family is, it just doesn't affect the immediate family as well. It's friends, it's the wider community. It was shocking. My feeling were towards the daughters, towards her parents, the Dickies, and trying not to, express my anger towards him with the local real estate agent in custody. Everybody braced themselves for what was sure to be an explosive trial after 2 years of investigations. 1,500 lines of inquiry and 500 witness statements. The trial began in June 2014. With police and prosecutors confident in their case against Allison Baden-Clay. Yes, this is a very challenging case. I'm not there to join the dots. I'm there to provide the dots. And I was hopeful that the evidence I gave in court assisted the jury in making their decision. Really interesting to see then how all of the pieces fell into place, that little bit of information that were trickled to us, then that made sense. It was all fascinating to follow it and see how it, family in mourning, all played out in the courts. At the very start of the trial, Jared Baden-Clay pleaded not guilty, claiming he had nothing to do with his wife's disappearance or death during the court proceedings. Extracts from Allison's diary were read aloud to the jury, revealing a wife and mother struggling with her marriage. What really struck a chord with me was how troubled this marriage was and information that came out from Allison's diaries. Outside, they looked like the perfect family. Successful real estate agent, beautiful, kind, friendly, loving, professional woman. They had 3 beautiful kids. Everyone loved the family, definitely loved Allison and her children anyway. And what was so sad is that there was this woman who was battling on the inside and was not revealing any of that information to anyone. Allison's diary revealed a heartbreaking existence within a troubled marriage, insecurities arising from Jared's continued infidelity, his refusal to be intimate, psychological and emotional abuse, resulting in frustrations regarding body image and self-worth, destabilized. Strong and proud woman. What went on behind closed doors, a lot of people didn't know about it, even though her friends did pick up certain behaviors and said they didn't like Jared Baden-Clay. But Allison continued to gloss over it all, following 2 years of investigations, a month-long trial, and 5 days of deliberations. On the 15th of July 2014, jurors delivered their unanimous verdict. Guilty. Jared Baden-Clay went from suburban real estate salesman to cold-blooded killer. Jared Baden-Clay, a 46-year-old father of 3, was sentenced to life imprisonment for the murder of his wife, Allison, and ordered to serve a minimum term of 15 years. Thank God, this bastard who's done this to this beautiful, caring, kind wife. And I was very impressed with the way they operated, how professional they were. How precise, meticulous. We never got to meet Allison, but dealing with the Dickey family and the extended family after this lengthy investigation, I feel we know her. It was relief for the family of Allison Baden-Clay. So those girls didn't lose just the mother, they lost the father as well. I hope also for the daughters, that whilst they've been robbed of the pleasure of their mother for the rest of their life, that I feel there's something of her spirit will always be with them. And I just feel her love is with them, the family and friends of Allison. However, the relief was short-lived in December 2015. After lodging an appeal, Jared Baden-Clay's conviction for murder was substituted for one of manslaughter. There were gasps as 3 judges handed down their ruling, saying there was not enough evidence to prove he intended to kill Allison. The news of the downgrading was met with widespread criticism, not least from Allison's friends and relatives. Justice has not been served to Allison and her family. Condemnation of the downgrading has helped shine a light on the growing and troubling issue of domestic violence, a problem that is affecting the whole of Australia. Domestic violence happens everywhere, but she's really highlighted to the wider community that it's something we need to give focus to. I think what it highlighted for me is that the media were focusing on what they didn't even know was a common problem. Diane Manganus, the CEO of DV Connect, Brisbane, a statewide telephone service offering help and support to anyone affected by domestic or family violence. I've been working in the field of domestic violence and child abuse for 40 years. Many women are living with domestic violence. They are married to men who have standing in the community. These are sometimes women who have standing in the community themselves. I think it brings to light that it can happen to any community, be it in a wealthy community like Brisbane or a lower socioeconomic community. There's no barriers. Sometimes women need to know that it's not a shame factor, that they need to reach out to the family. And it's important for the family to let them know that if anything can be taken from this terrible situation. She's become a poster girl for domestic violence. And as a consequence, we see what's happening in Australian government at the moment. So much more funding is being allocated to domestic violence issues. It is very warming to see that perhaps other women can benefit from campaigning and funding and awareness which has been generated from this terrible, terrible story, in a fitting tribute to Allison after her death. the Allison's Gift Foundation was established by family and friends. The organization assists young victims of crime by providing financial assistance and support. It's generally a family in pain that is driven to activism that leads the country into a change of attitude. This is where these changes come from. It's the death, the tragedies that propel families to want to keep it focused, and communities feel a great sense of compassion for something that's led by people who are suffering whilst she's gone. The goodness from her life has just become magnanimous, and it's just that part of it is brilliant. I hope it gathers momentum, and I hope the people really get behind it. And I know the Brisbane community will keep it going because she was so loved. Yellow is significant to the foundation, as it was Allison's favorite color. And the lighting at Brisbane Story Bridge on July the 31st, 2015, was in memory of Allison and other victims of domestic violence. The lighting up of the bridge, the yellow, the flowers. She was so talented, she was intelligent, she'd had a really good career, and she gave it all up to become, his wife and help him out with his business, and end up paying the ultimate price for it. If anything positive can be taken from this tragedy, is that perhaps more awareness is being raised for other victims of family violence and the foundation that her friends and family have set up. And also we see what's happening within the Australian government is actually acting at the moment well and devoting more funding to domestic violence. And you can really hope that from this case, perhaps other women who are suffering in similar situations will come forward, tell a friend, even a family member, just talk to someone about it, that something so extreme and tragic never has to happen again. Thank you for joining us on this episode of World True Crime. The story of Allison Baden-Clay serves as a chilling reminder the truth can sometimes be more shocking than fiction. As we continue to explore the darkest corners of human behavior, we hope you'll subscribe and stay with us for more tales of crime and justice from around the world. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and always question the stories that unfold before you.